辞職期間を経て、再びこちらでお世話になることになり、大変感謝しております。ご迷惑をおかけしたことも、大変申し訳なく感じております。この気持ちを忘れず、心機一転、会社に貢献してまいります。どうか、よろしくお願いいたします。
Today, I want to share with you the journey of a young couple, Mizuki and her husband, who have been married for 3 years. Their story is not filled with drama or sensational events, but with something much more valuable: perseverance, optimism, and the power of standing together through life's trials. They didn't have a perfect life, but they valued the small, meaningful moments. Mizuki's husband, once managing his own company, faced an economic downturn that forced him to close the business. Many people might have fallen into despair, blaming themselves or withdrawing from their loved ones. But Mizuki and her husband chose differently. Instead of letting the situation erode their happiness, they made a conscious decision to stay optimistic, to look forward, and to treat this challenge not as an end, but as an opportunity to grow. This decision wasn't made in a single conversation, nor was it the result of blind positivity. It was a gradual choice, built day by day as they faced reality together. Mizuki's husband returned to his former workplace, taking on the role of an employee once again. It wasn't easy. There were adjustments, moments of doubt, and the pressure of rebuilding their finances. Yet he approached his work with renewed determination. He didn't let the shadow of past setbacks weigh him down. Instead, he carried with him the lessons he had learned and the quiet motivation of wanting to provide stability and happiness for his wife. Through this stage, what stood out most wasn't just his effort, but the way Mizuki supported him. She didn't dwell on what they had lost or the opportunities that slipped away. She reminded him of the value of perseverance, encouraged him when fatigue showed on his face, and most importantly, kept their household filled with laughter and warmth. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is not advice or solutions, but the reassurance that we still believe in them, even when life seems uncertain. Over time, these shared efforts began to bear fruit. Mizuki's husband's dedication at work caught the attention of his company director. The director noticed his commitment, the quiet persistence, and perhaps even the unspoken story behind his determination. Recognition is powerful. It doesn't only reward past effort, but also opens new doors for the future.
はい。実は相談がありまして、はい。モデルを探しているんですが、はい。30代後半から40代でして、人妻のモデルでして、はい。はい。それがですね、大谷拓門さんで、もしもし。はい。それは私も同席しますので、もしもし。もしもし。もしもし、こちら田中様のお電話でしょうか。お世話になっております。私ですね、以前お仕事でご一緒させていただいた弥生と申します。はい。そうなんですよ。はい。また復帰しまして。はい。
This is where Mizuki herself entered a new chapter. The director, understanding the couple's resilience and appreciating their integrity, reached out to her with an unexpected opportunity. It wasn't simply an act of generosity. It was a gesture of trust. He invited Mizuki to join a product promotion project as a representative, a chance to both contribute and grow. For someone without much prior experience, this invitation was both exciting and daunting. Would she be able to handle it? Would it create new pressures? These questions naturally weighed on her.
君には言えなかったみたいだね。
なんで私なんでしょうか。
大谷拓本が水木君のこと気に入ったらしい。
断るに決まってるじゃないですか。
当たり前だろう。そっちばかり助けてくださいなんて牛が良すぎるだろう。こっちも助けてやってるんだ。
それは分かってます。でもモデルなんか。
この撮影がうまくいけば大谷拓本が契約も考えてくれてるそうだ。大谷拓本との契約は弥生君の評価につけていい。弥生にはインセンティブも入るだろう。
インセンティブ。
お金に困ってるんだろう。リセットするいいチャンスだろう。
これが全ての始まりだった。
But here is where the beauty of this story lies. Instead of retreating into doubt, Mizuki leaned into the support of her husband. Together, they reminded each other that growth comes through challenge, that every new step might feel uncertain at first, but can lead to rewarding outcomes. And with this mindset, they agreed to embark on the journey ahead. This introduction may seem simple, but at its core lies a universal message. When faced with difficulties, what defines us is not the challenge itself, but how we respond to it. Mizuki and her husband show us that optimism is not naive, it is a deliberate act of courage. Their decision to stand side by side, to believe in each other, and to keep moving forward is a reminder we can all carry into our own lives. Because in the end, life is not about avoiding storms. It is about learning to walk through them together with kindness, with hope, and with a vision of the brighter days that effort and perseverance can
あ
bring.
なた、この仕事好きなんでしょ？ここで頑張って2人でやり直そう。そのためなら私、何でも我慢できるから。
For Mizuki and her husband, life had already tested their resilience, and the simple fact that they had remained optimistic was in itself a victory. Life rewards persistence with moments of renewal, and that was exactly what was about to unfold for them. The day the company director invited Mizuki to join the product promotion project felt surreal. For years, she had quietly supported her husband from the background, ensuring their household was filled with encouragement and warmth. She had never seen herself in a professional spotlight, nor imagined being asked to represent something larger than her own daily life. The excitement wasn't about fame, recognition, or even financial stability. It was about stepping into a new chapter of life together. For the first time, Mizuki wasn't just the supportive figure behind her husband's journey. She was stepping onto a stage of her own, encouraged by the very person she had always encouraged. The days leading up to the project's first activity, promotional photo shoot, were filled with a mix of anticipation and nervous laughter. Mizuki practiced in front of the mirror, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with surprising confidence. Her husband teased her gently, pretending to be a photographer, but always with genuine admiration in his eyes. These small moments built a sense of excitement that reached beyond the project itself. It became a shared adventure, something they could look back on together and say, "We did this as a team."
こちらこそよろしくね。
お邪魔します。
ああ、待ってたよ。さあ、こっち来い。紹介します、大谷さん。うちの社員の弥生と、その奥さんの水木くんです。
はじめまして。
大谷さん、本日はよろしくお願いいたします。
私のインスピレーションの邪魔をしないでもらえるかな。今彼女とこうしてるんだから。あ、そうだったね。じゃあ違うか。
さあ、着替えに行こうか。こっちだから、こいつは。
はい。
あのドアの向こうへ。お願いします。
On the morning of the shoot, Mizuki felt her stomach tighten with nerves. The lights, the cameras, the unfamiliar environment, it all seemed overwhelming. She worried about looking unnatural, about making mistakes, about being judged. Her husband, standing by her side, sensed her unease. He himself felt anxious, not because he doubted her, but because he didn't want her to carry unnecessary pressure. His protective instinct was strong. He wanted her to shine without the weight of worry.
大谷さん、この撮影うまくいったら契約のことお願いしますよ。
まあ善処するよ。いい被写体来たけど、まあそれは取れ高次第だから。
わかりました。
What makes this part of their story so powerful is how they chose to handle that tension. Instead of letting nervousness dominate the moment, they leaned on each other. Before Mizuki stepped in front of the camera, her husband squeezed her hand and
お待た
whispered,
せしました。
"No matter what happens, I'm proud of you."
いいね。何着ても。
That simple reassurance turned her fear into energy. She smiled, not just for the camera, but for herself, for her husband, and for the life they were building together.
いいかな。
はい、大丈夫です。
いいのかな。じゃあこっち来て。よし、じゃあリラックスして肩の力抜いてね。ちょっと髪の毛ごめんね。さあ、じゃあちょっとテスト受けるよ。はい、リラックスしてね。はい、スマイル。はい、そこ。いいよ。ああ、いいね。綺麗だよ。
The first clicks of the camera captured more than an image. They captured a transformation. Mizuki realized that she didn't need to be perfect. She only needed to be authentic, to represent herself and the values she and her husband carried: resilience, optimism, and unity. Excitement rippled through both of them in that moment. For her husband, watching Mizuki shine was both humbling and inspiring. He saw her courage in real time, the way she stepped beyond her comfort zone and embraced something new. For Mizuki, the excitement came from discovering that she was capable of more than she had imagined. This wasn't just about one photo shoot. It was about redefining who she could be and what she could contribute.
静かにしろ。
After the session ended, the director and his team expressed genuine admiration for Mizuki's spirit. They weren't looking for a professional model. They were looking for someone relatable, someone who embodied sincerity and determination. And Mizuki had given them exactly that. The compliments weren't just polite words. They were recognition of her authenticity, and that recognition filled both Mizuki and her husband with joy. The couple felt lighter, as if the day had lifted a hidden weight. They laughed about the awkward poses, replayed funny moments, and held hands a little tighter. Excitement lingered, not just because the shoot went well, but because it opened a new window into their future. It was a reminder that stepping into unknown territory often leads to growth, and that courage, however small it may seem, can ripple into larger successes. At the heart of this excitement was a lesson worth remembering. Opportunities don't always arrive when we feel fully prepared. Sometimes they arrive precisely when we doubt ourselves. And it is in those moments that we must decide whether to retreat or to take a leap of faith. Mizuki's leap didn't erase her worries, but it transformed them into motivation. As they returned to their daily lives, the project became more than a professional milestone. It became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that no matter how life changes, as long as they hold on to optimism and trust, new horizons will always be within reach. Every journey, no matter how hopeful, eventually encounters its share of obstacles. For Mizuki and her husband, the excitement of new opportunities quickly gave way to the realities of responsibility. Success was not going to come easily, and as much as they had embraced optimism, there were still days when doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. Mizuki, despite her strong start, soon realized that stepping into an entirely new field required far more than courage. She worried about whether her smile looked genuine, whether her performance was good enough, and whether she was truly meeting expectations. Her husband, too, found himself wrestling with his own inner conflict. On the surface, he was proud, but beneath that pride lay concern. His protective instinct sometimes made him hesitate to fully celebrate her progress, because part of him was quietly afraid of seeing her struggle. This emotional tug-of-war created subtle moments of tension between them. The drama wasn't born from conflict between them, but from the pressures of growth itself. They were stepping outside of comfort zones, confronting insecurities, and learning to adapt in real time. And with every new responsibility came the possibility of failure. The director, who had been observing Mizuki's progress, also played a subtle role during this time. He understood that talent alone is not what makes someone shine. It is consistency, humility, and the willingness to learn. When Mizuki felt uncertain, his quiet words of encouragement reminded her that progress was more important than perfection. This outside validation gave her the reassurance she needed, reinforcing what her husband had already been telling her. Still, the emotional highs and lows were real. There were moments when Mizuki feared disappointing both her husband and the director. There were moments when her husband worried about whether this new chapter was pulling them too far from the simple happiness they once cherished. These emotions swirled together, creating the drama of transformation, messy, uncomfortable, but deeply human. Yet within that drama lay the seed of something greater, because each challenge forced them to communicate more openly, to lean on one another more deeply, and to recognize the strength they carried not as individuals, but as a team. They discovered that love isn't tested in moments of ease. It is tested when fears rise, when patience is stretched, and when uncertainty looms. Drama, in their story, wasn't about conflict tearing them apart. It was about the tension of growth, the discomfort of moving from who they were to who they were becoming. And while it wasn't always easy, it was necessary. Because without that drama, there could be no depth to their resilience, no authenticity to their optimism, and no true strength in their unity. Growth is rarely smooth. It often feels messy, filled with doubts and fears. But if we approach it with patience, humility, and the willingness to keep moving forward, that very struggle becomes the foundation for lasting strength. And for Mizuki and her husband, that strength was slowly but surely shaping the life they had always dreamed of, one not defined by perfection, but by love, perseverance, and the courage to keep going together. Every story carries with it a lesson, but the most meaningful lessons are not learned from books or theories. They are shaped by experience, by the moments when life asks us to be more patient, more resilient, and more open than we thought we could be. For Mizuki and her husband, the lessons they learned during this period became the pillars of their future happiness. True strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in embracing them together. Together, they discovered that a relationship is not about one person carrying all the burdens, but about balancing each other, sharing encouragement when the other feels weak. Success is not measured by perfection, but by perseverance. That realization became a liberating truth, not only for her, but for her husband as well. Optimism is not something passive, it is an active choice. They chose to see setbacks as temporary, to believe in each other when uncertainty was high, and to treat every challenge as an opportunity to deepen their bond. This wasn't blind positivity. It was a deliberate act of courage that carried them through. Love grows not only in comfort, but in challenge. Many couples hope for a life without hardships, but Mizuki and her husband discovered that the very trials they faced became the soil where their love grew deeper roots. These lessons are not only for Mizuki and her husband. They are reminders for all of us. How often do we let fear stop us from trying something new? How often do we measure our worth by perfection instead of persistence? How often do we forget that optimism is a choice we must make daily, especially when circumstances seem uncertain? Together, they teach us that family is not just about sharing joy. It is about sharing effort, responsibility, and courage. For many people, success is tied to money, status, or recognition. But for Mizuki and her husband, success began to mean something deeper: the ability to remain kind, hopeful, and united even when circumstances changed. In practical terms, this mindset shift influenced everything they did. These subtle changes created a powerful dynamic, one of mutual trust, shared responsibility, and unconditional support. Mizuki and her husband learned to bend with life's pressures. They adjusted, adapted, and found strength in their ability to rise again after each moment of doubt. This is a skill every one of us can practice, whether in relationships, careers, or personal growth. When challenges arise, it's natural to ask, why me? But Mizuki and her husband slowly shifted that question to, what can we learn from this? We often underestimate the impact of encouragement, but their story proves that it can be the difference between giving up and moving forward. Mizuki and her husband became more than just a couple navigating challenges. They became an example, a quiet inspiration, a living reminder that growth is possible when we choose love, patience, and perseverance over fear and doubt. Life will test us, but we are never powerless. We always have the choice to respond with resilience, to trust the people who stand beside us, and to believe that every challenge is also an opportunity to grow. Mizuki and her husband chose that path, and in doing so, they not only overcame their struggles, but also created a foundation of wisdom and strength that will guide them for years to come. Together, they created a partnership that was stronger than before. Their story closes not with a grand finale, but with a quiet, enduring truth. Happiness is not given, it is built. It is built through effort, shared resilience, and the decision to keep walking hand in hand, no matter what life may bring. Challenges will come, but with love and determination, they can be transformed into opportunities for growth. Their journey teaches us that happiness is not the absence of problems, but the courage to face them together, and that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. Share your thoughts. What lesson from Mizuki's story resonates most with you? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring life stories and positive lessons. And remember, every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger together.